MLB payroll history just dropped a bomb, and you're going to want to hear it today on Locked On A's.
You are Locked On A's, your daily podcast on the Athletics, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. My name is Booney, lifelong A's fan who has spent the past season covering this team every day with post-game breakdowns, prospect deep dives, roster decisions, all the chaos in between. And in the offseason, yes, we are still covering the A's every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. So do me a big favor and hit that subscribe button wherever you are following the show. Welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team, your A's, every single day. Today on Locked On A's, we are cooking up a question that baseball fans argue about every single winter. Does spending money in the offseason actually correlate to winning? Well, the easy answer is yes. The smug answer is obviously yes. But the real answer, when you actually dig into 28 years of payroll, it's a whole lot messier. And surprise, the spreadsheet does not tell the story you think it does. But before we jump into the numbers, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you will get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. It is December. Winter meetings are around the corner. Rumors are flying. Somebody's signing someone. Agents are smiling. Owners are sweating. Fans are posting photoshops like they're actual transactions. And 1 year ago, well, just a day shy of 1 year exactly, something happened. I'll tell you about what exactly happened almost to the day 1 year ago. See what you think of it. Last year, I did an episode in the offseason about the correlation with regard to smart spending or big spending. That's the question. And I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. But first, does spending big make you win big? Well, it depends on what your definition of winning big is, and it depends on what your definition of success is. And to answer that, I went way back to 1995. Like I said, I did this study in a show last year, and I wanted to see what the results were. I took it all the way back to 1995. And why 1995? Because 1995 was the first year baseball expanded the playoff format beyond two teams and a handshake. Remember back in the day, AL West, AL East, NL West, NL East, and you had a champion, 4 divisions. It was kind of crazy. Part of me misses it, but the expanded playoff format also makes sense. From 1995 forward, the postseason has been a real tournament. I mean, here's basically how the eras have broken down. From 95 to 2011, you had 8 playoff teams, 4 from the American, 4 from the National. In 2012 through 2021, there was 10 teams. In 2022 to 2024, 12 playoff teams. 2020 thrown out because basically COVID ruined everybody's math. What I then did was I grabbed the opening day payroll ranking for all 30 teams and asked a simple question. Based on the number of available spots, did the teams that spent the most actually end up making the postseason? But first, What is winning? What is success? You can try to call it World Series titles, but that's nonsense. 7 teams have won nearly 75% of the championships since 1995. And those teams aren't exactly shy about spending on payroll. But baseball isn't about rings alone. It's about making the postseason. You can't script a ring, but you can build a path to October. And that's my definition and always has been the definition of success, in my opinion and how I view it, is postseason. Can your team get through 162 and get to the postseason? The results are kind of wild, and here is where it gets fun. When you look at the 28 seasons, well, actually, considering this year, 29 seasons, here's what came out. Teams in the top 3 of payroll almost always make the playoffs. In 29 years, they missed only 2 times, 2008 and 2013. That's absurd consistency. The highest payroll in baseball has won the World Series 7 times. 5 for the Yankees, 1 for the Red Sox, and this year with the Dodgers. Bottom half payroll teams still made the postseason 77 times. And here's what I mean by bottom half payrolls. If you take the top 15 teams, 16 through 30 would be your bottom half of the payroll. That's 29% of the playoff field in nearly 3 decades. 41% of ALCS, NLCS teams were top 5 payroll clubs. Money helps you get deep, but doesn't guarantee you anything. Now, here's the overall results for the last 30 years. And here's what I kind of mean. Here's the example I'm talking about. If we take this year as a reference, this year we had 12 playoff teams. You had the Dodgers, who was number 1 in payroll. You had the Yankees, 3 in payroll. Phillies were 4. Blue Jays were 5. Padres were 6. Cubs were 10. Red Sox were 12. 7 out of 12 teams were in the top half of the payroll, right? The other 5 teams, Mariners, Tigers, Brewers, Reds, Guardians. So in a perfect world, how the theory would basically work is if spending money truly meant that you were guaranteed to win, well, payrolls 1 through 12 would make the postseason. Obviously, that's not likely to happen. But the results of how many teams in that top 12 in payroll actually made the playoffs would surprise you. And I'll cover that in a minute. Up next. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you are following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. I've been using Prize Picks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs. It keeps every game exciting. I like picking my favorite players like Patrick Mahomes and Draymond Green to see how my predictions play out. The new Stacks feature is a game changer. You can now pick more on Draymond's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. Plus, if one of your player leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves my lineup from a loss. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Flea, what's up, buddy? The stadium is gonna look incredible. I agree, man. I agree. I thought the fan experience they launched, what was it, yesterday, 2 days ago, was incredible. I thought they did a hell of a job with that, and I couldn't agree with you more. A stadium is going to look absolutely amazing. And according to Fisher in his comments yesterday, sounds like they're actually maybe a little bit ahead of time, but at least on time. What we are talking about today is, does spending truly correlate to winning? In other words, if that is the truth and you have 12 teams that go to the playoffs, the top 12 in spending would naturally make the playoffs every year. But obviously that's a little unrealistic. But what were the results? What percentage of teams in the top 12 in payroll actually did make the playoffs? From 1995 to 2025, this is excluding 2020, there were 274 playoff teams. 274. Of those, 138 were expected to make the playoffs in their particular format. Meaning, 138 of the 174 teams were in the top 12 in payroll, which I found absolutely astounding. That is just about 50%. Out of 274 teams, let me say that again, 138 actually made the playoffs. 136 were outside the top 12 in payroll. Almost exactly 50%. Just about an exact coin flip. So does spending correlate to winning? Based on the numbers, spending correlates to winning just as much as flipping a coin. And if you conclude 2020 as a tiebreaker, only 7 of the 16 teams that year were in the top 16 in payroll. So if I did include 2020, we're looking at 290 teams. 145 were in the top half of payroll. That made it 50-50. 50-50. So technically the answer is no. Spending does not correlate strictly with winning. But hold up, we're not done. The data is the data, but baseball isn't played in XL. Here's the truth. Money gives you an opportunity, not a guarantee. Spending allows you to chase players. It does not ensure you're chasing the right ones. Baseball today has turned into a numbers contest. Everything is spin rate, exit velocity, wins above replacement, launch angle, barrel percentage, horizontal movement, vertical break. GM offices look like Silicon Valley co-working spaces, not baseball clubs. But here's what teams forget. Did the guys actually mesh in the clubhouse? I've said it before. The Dodgers have always spent a lot of money. But in the last 2 seasons is when they have truly won. And what the Dodgers have done a hell of a job at is their culture, is their clubhouse. People accepting the role. They do mesh in the clubhouse. You need players that, hey, when you're about to sign him, does he elevate younger players? Is he unselfish? Is he coachable? Is he someone teammates follow? Look at the disaster the Mets had. Nearly the highest payroll in all of baseball, and they were a mess. Those questions get ignored until something goes wrong. Meanwhile, teams will gamble millions on a pitcher because his slider moves 14.7 inches instead of 14.4 inches. The Mets, one of the top payrolls in baseball. But they didn't get it done. When you look at the history in the past and see who's done what and who's helped teams get to where they need, it's been the guys that are making the league minimum. In 2024, speaking of the Mets and their amazing run, it was guys like Mark Vientos, Jose Acuna. They were the glue. So here's the real answer to the original question. Money correlates to winning if you spend it on the right players. Not the biggest names, not the highest spin rates, the right players. And for low payroll teams like the A's, if the moment presents itself, even once every few years, you must be willing to open the checkbook for the right guy, not just the metrics darling. Baseball isn't math. Baseball is people. The teams that forget that, they end up confused as to how they spent $200 million and finished fourth. That teams that remember it, they end up playing in October. It's the right players, guys. It is the right players, not the ones you spend the most money on. What's up, Flea? They're going to go from not being able to recruit any free agent to sack down to way better chances now with that stadium experience thing. Yeah, I think you're right. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt, right? We still have to sign the right players. And when we're talking about the right players, and I want the A's to make the right decisions. And going back a little bit to what the comments Fisher made yesterday, and with regard to spending, I don't want the A's just to simply spend foolishly on whoever that may be. And speaking of spending foolishly, almost 1 year ago today, the A's made a splash in free agency. 1 year later, let's talk about it. Up next. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on anything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. 1 year ago today, 1 year ago tomorrow will be the date. The A's signed Luis Severino, 3 years, $66 million. That third year is a player option. I am sure he has already opted in on. And at that point, a comp was set. And what do I mean by a comp? Well, we heard afterwards that the going money for Severino was more like 3 years, $51 million. But in order to sway Severino and play in Sacramento, because the A's had to spend money last year to avoid facing a grievance from the Major League Baseball Players Association, they forked up and paid him a premium. What's up, Thomas Joseph? Always love the Expo logo, man. Once all of this is in the rear view mirror, the Vegas A's will be quite a destination, I wager. I agree with you 100%. I don't believe the A's will ever be in the top 10 in payroll. They might be. I think they'll always hang around between 10 and 15 at the best. He's just not going to spend. It's always been profit first, Dinger second with the A's. He will spend based on profitability of the ballpark of the A's in the area. And I think Vegas is going to explode. I think Vegas is an absolute gold mine. I think there's so many opportunities for baseball year round. And I get this has been criticized, and cynics look elsewhere and they say, no way, no chance. The thing about Vegas is not only the ticket revenue, is the other opportunity Vegas brings. You're talking about a world destination. And with an exciting team the A's have and the young talent they have, you're talking about people coming from across the world to see this team. I can't wait. I can't wait for Vegas. I think it's going to be awesome. I agree with you, Thomas Joseph. People are short-sighted. It's really going to be quite amazing. I want ownership. I want management to do a better job of marketing the team. If you have a gold mine, it's like when the Apple iPhone was first coming out. I mean, do you put that in your, and people already have gotten a peek of it. It hasn't hit the market, but people already knows what it does, etc. You market the hell out of it. And that's the same thing you do with guys like Nick Kurtz and Jacob Wilson and Tyler Soderstrom and Shea Langoliers and Brent Rooker. You market the hell out of them. I want to see more vision, more A's in Vegas. It's never too soon. And I would like that same type of energy to be brought to Sacramento. You want to create energy now in Sacramento, and then you have some momentum. Create the momentum now. Ride that wave into Vegas. That's what I would like to see the A's do. Severino, 3 years, $66 million. A year later, how do I feel about it? I don't know. I don't like the signing. I don't like it for that much, but the A's really have a choice. You don't know what was going on behind closed doors. They had to spend the money. There was no choice. In order to hit the revenue share, to hit the minimum payroll amount so they could participate in revenue sharing. Jeffrey Springs trade, I loved. I mean, who would have thought we got Jacob Lopez out of it? But when you look at some of the trades right now, and my man Journey, love Journey. Journey for beginners, Bunny. I like the Bunny reference. Thank you, pal. I want an owner who spends. All the teams that spend make playoffs and win championships. Not necessarily true. Not necessarily true. As I said, 100, what did I say the number was? 172? No, 174. Excuse me. 190 teams in the last, since 1994, have made the playoffs. 145, exactly 50%, were in either the top 8, top 10, top 12 in payroll, depending on how many playoff teams were allowed in that specific year. The other 145, the other 100, half those teams were outside that top 8, top 10, top 12 that made the playoffs. So that's not necessarily true. But at the same time, it depends on what your definition of success is. Only 2 teams in the top 3 in payroll have not made the playoffs since 1994, which is outstanding. Unbelievable number when you think of it. 2 teams, 2008, 2013. Only 2 teams have not made the playoffs. Bill, you think the attendance in Sacramento will lead them not to be considered not getting an expansion team? No, I don't, Bill. I think bottom line, whether you like it or don't like it, the team that is going, the city that is going to get an expansion team is the city that provides the largest subsidy for a new stadium. Simple as that. I think it's going to go to Salt Lake City, if I had to guess. They're ready to roll. And that's what it's really going to come down to. And we know California is not going to do that. We just know. At the end of the day, it's a business. And whether you agree with that business or not, and how it's done and how it's a business. So no, I don't even think it matters. No, I don't think if they sold it out every night, so forth, it really matters. The attendance is weird though with Sacramento. And I talked about this in the past. You got 10,000 seats, right? And then you got 4,000 in that lawn area. You're supposed to squeeze in people that they're charging $20-25 a seat for. That's crazy. Who does that? What's up, Thomas? David Sampson has an excellent podcast, which he makes clear revenue sharing is for improving the team. Yes, not specifically payroll. A's, Expos, Marlins president. He should know. Yes, it should be. Revenue sharing is for improving the team, not specifically payroll. I see what you're saying, and I know what you're getting at. Yeah. But I think the main way you're going to improve that team is by spending on some players. And I think what the A's haven't done anything to improve their product in the last several years. That goes without saying, on or off the field. And that's one thing that does need to get better. But I don't necessarily care if the A's are in the top half of the payroll. I don't care if they're in the top 10 in payroll. I don't care where they're at, to be honest, with regard to payroll. What I do care about is they make the right baseball decisions. And the right baseball decisions this year and going forward, and I've talked about it on many of occasions, is keeping the young core together. You extend Kurtz, you extend Soderstrom, you extend Wilson. You buy out their pre-arb, you buy out their arb years, and you extend them through 2034, 2033. You start advertising them. You start marketing them in Vegas. You build a fan base. You get something to get excited about. He never lost a grievance in that area. The Marlins built a huge Dominican complex, for example. Yeah, I get it. I see what you're going with it, Dave. Yep. No, you're right. They didn't. But the Marlins product, look what the Marlins product's been too for the last who knows how long. And you could say, hey, it was run under particular image here, there, so forth. So yeah, I agree with you there. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to the product and something people can get excited about. The Marlins have a hell of a young team. They're similar to the A's in a lot of different ways. That's for sure. But I want the A's to make the right moves. And I don't want guys like Kurtz, Wilson, and Langoliers getting away. Soderstrom. I don't want guys getting away. Extend the young core. Build this fan base. Get something going where people actually get excited about. Take advantage of the 2 years in Sacramento. Build a restaurant right there in Old Town Sac, a bar. Whatever it may be. I mean, call it the Ricky Henderson restaurant. Whatever you want. But something that gets people excited. And right now, it's not there. So management has some work to do. The fan experience yesterday was a start, for sure. And what they're continuing to grow in Vegas and how that stadium is going up is a start. But they got a long way to go. But no, I don't think soul spending correlates to winning. Take care, guys. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I will see you all tomorrow for a brand new Locked On A's. Take it easy, guys. Thank you for making Locked On A's your first listen every day. For your second listen, find the Locked On MLB podcast where there is no offseason. Sully keeps you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed MLB fan. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.